Welcome to another episode of Full Build Friday, where I try to build a character from a comic, game, or similar source using the baseline rules of Pathfinder Second Edition and the Path Builder app. We started a walk on the wild side with the Rengar build, and we're going to find ourselves even deeper down that path this week with a fresh Full Build Friday for Laura Kinney, or, as you may better know her, X-23. Let's cut to the quick and look at some build goals for this marvelous maiden. The character of X-23, Talon, or Laura Kinney, whatever you want to call her, originated in X-Men Evolution, before following in the proud tradition of Harley Quinn and emigrating to the comics. There, she was a mutant artificially created using Wolverine's DNA, and carried by one of the scientists on the subject who gave her the name Laura Kinney. She was created and trained to be an assassin and covert operative, highly skilled in hand-to-hand combat, marksmanship, and assassination techniques. She eventually escaped and found her way to the X-Men, though not before some misadventures of her own. Like her father, X-23's primary power is an accelerated healing factor, allowing her to swiftly recover from wounds and making her largely immune to diseases and drugs. As part of this power, she has enhanced agility, durability, and stamina, along with superhuman senses that help make her an expert tracker. Finally, and perhaps most famously, she is known for a pair of retractable bone claws on each hand and a retractable bone claw on each foot that were later coated in adamantium. We're looking to build a nimble warrior who fights with her natural claws and talons, able to switch from one to the other with ease while striking at vulnerable points to swiftly eliminate targets. We'll want to represent the fact that she is an experiment created from the DNA of the illustrious Wolverine, and I've got some ideas just for that. To kick it all off, X-23 will use the Flesh Warp Ancestry. Her status as an artificially created mutant reflected well in this ancestry created by unnatural means. This provides her with an automatic boost to Constitution, as well as a free boost that she can take to Dexterity. The ancestry also makes her resistant to diseases and poisons, and provides her with low light vision. However, rather than taking one of the Flesh Warp's standard heritages, she is going to use the Changeling heritage, increasing her low light into dark vision. More importantly though, and the reason that I took it in the first place, is the Slag May Ancestry feat. This jumpstarts a build by providing her with a set of nasty claws that come with the grapple trait, and just so happen to be made of cold iron, resembling the metal coating her own bones. One quick addendum before we move on from the ancestry here. The Flesh Warp Ancestry can be small or medium, so if you want to play into X-23's own clone, Honey Badger, just choose to be a small Flesh Warp and otherwise follow this build, and you're ready to rock. The use of the Flesh Warp Ancestry means that we have already covered the experiment to create X-23. My original idea had been to use the magical experiment background, but with that aspect already explored, we are free to use the Mantis Scion background. This is inspired by her rearing to be an assassin, and it provides her with an initial boost to Dexterity and a free boost that can be used to bolster her strength. It also means that she's trained in Stealth and the Assassin Lore skill, while providing her with the Assurance skill feat for Stealth. I'm not entirely sold on the skill feat specifically for Stealth, but maybe you can figure out something to do with it. Now, rounding out our ABCs, we are going to double dip, following up last week with yet another rogue class. This further reflects X-23's harsh training as an assassin, providing her with the sneak attack and surprise attack class features to let her take advantage of vulnerable foes, swiftly executing her targets. Helping in that effort, she takes up the Thief Racket, meaning that she not only receives a boost to her dexterity, but can also add that dexterity bonus to damage rolls with her finesse melee weapons and finesse unarmed attacks, which will be the more important of the two. She can't use this with her Slag May claws, since they don't have finesse, but she has some plans coming up. For now, we'll take a look at her Tumble Behind class feat, letting her use her innate agility to tumble between foes, tangling them up to leave them as a vulnerable victim for ventilation. Her opening skill feat will be Experience Tracker, as this will allow her to track down her quarries with greater swiftness, a skill that she was trained in as a weapon for those that made her. When it comes to her skill proficiencies, the Rogue would make X-23 automatically trained in Stealth, which she ended up receiving from her background, while her racket makes her trained in thievery. She will become trained in an extra skill in place of stealth, so in total, she is going to be trained in acrobatics, athletics, deception, intimidation, medicine, nature, society, and survival. Thanks to that thief racket, we can go full tilt into her dexterity for her ability score, but we'll also boost her constitution, wisdom, and charisma. This gives her a bit of a spread with a starting focus on dex and con, reflecting her durability and how her innate healing lets her hang in the fight longer. I must admit, X-23 might need to survive on something like the Claw Blade for her first level, but really starts coming online when we reach second level and she can take the Claw Dancer dedication. She needed a permanent claw or talon unarmed attack to take this in the first place, which is why it was important for her to find an ancestry, or heritage, that could provide her with just that. This will let her cycle between Claw Stance, giving her a Finesse Claw Strike to represent those blades on her hands, and Talon Stance, which grants her a Finesse Talon Strike based off of the claws located in her feet. She then takes a focus on Athletics, becoming an expert in it, and adds Titan Wrestler to her skill feats. This will allow her to grapple larger foes, such as the Sentinels, and take advantage of her claw's grapple trait. Having somebody grabbed also means that they are off guard, which will then let her take advantage of her sneak attack class feature. I think it's best to start third level off with a little talk on what her class provides her with. She gains Deny Advantage, which makes her wise to the tricks of others like her, contributing to the difficulty in making her off guard. She also receives a skill increase to Survival, becoming an expert in it to cover her capability as a tracker. Then our Mighty Mauling Mutant takes Fast Recovery, and while I normally take this feat just to round out options, it is actually an integral step in representing her enhanced healing capability. In particular, it plays into her resistance to things such as diseases and poisons, letting her recover from them far more quickly than others would. She grabs Quick Jump as her skill feat, just letting her pounce on enemies with greater ease. This allows her to skip the normal stride that she would have to do to jump, and lets her get in that fight that much quicker. Our Animalistic Assassin acquires some expertise in stealth at 4th level, and then takes up the Claw Snag class feat, giving her a reaction to sink her claws into a victim, representing some of the more frenzied flurries that she makes. She looks at Powerful Leap for her skill feat, extending the range and distances of her jumps, which will factor into feat she has coming down the line. 5th level starts with X-23's ability boost to Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Wisdom, before increasing her Acrobatics to Expert, which will help her tumble through with greater ease. And also play into her upcoming skill feat. Weapon Tricks means that she becomes an expert with her weapons, and can also apply the critical specialization of her claws and talons, at least against off-guard foes. On the topic of these natural weapons, the Living Flesh Warp Ancestry feat both matches her background and gives her another Claw Strike. I'm not sure how having 3 different Claw Strikes works, but we've got it somehow. She can use Catfall as her skill feat here, meaning that she can fall those incredible distances without damage to pull off a comic book classic at this point, the Superhero Landing. We have our core skills at Expert already, meaning that Laura here can take her skill increase to Intimidation at 6th level. Much more integral to the character at this point is High Speed Regeneration, a deviant feat that X-23 can use to represent her enhanced healing. Then, since we've seen her use her claws to scale buildings and the like with ease, she takes Combat Climber as her skill feat. She can anchor herself with her claws in her feet in a single hand, so that she still has one to lash out against foes. There's a few class features at 7th level, starting with Evasive Reflexes that make her a master in reflex saves, and turn her successes on them into critical successes. She masters her Perception, gets Weapon Specialization to increase her damage, and then becomes a master in Athletics. Lore's a fast lass, so she takes the Fleet feat to increase her speed, and uses Intimidating Glare as her skill feat. Just like her pops, X-23 would rather mince people than words, and this lets her skip having to speak to frighten foes. I think I like this trend of starting off with class features, so we'll begin with an increase of Stealth at 8th level, letting her master it. For her class feat, she takes the very cool Spinning Stand. She can use this action while prone, lashing out with the talons on her feet, and then stand as a single action without triggering reactions. She could make this 2 actions, which lets her stab out with her talons against 2 different enemies, so either way you do it is action efficiency. For even more of that juicy action efficiency, she takes rolling landing as her skill feat. Being an expert in acrobatics right now, she can use a reaction to step or stride half her speed when she falls without taking damage. Moving into 9th level, we have Rogue Resilience, making her an expert in Fortitude and turning her successes into critical successes. She gains access to Debilitating Strike, a free action she can use after striking an off-guard creature to leave them enfeebled or with a lowered speed. Then, finally, she gets a skill increase that makes her a master in Survival. She gains Mutate Weapon as her ancestry feat, which is mostly a reference to the fact that she is a mutant, and then grabs Slippery Prey as a skill feat. This is a handy one, as it essentially adds the Agile trait to her escape attempts, potentially, perhaps, letting her break a limb to get away with the knowledge she'll heal up in seconds. An array of ability boosts allows our adventurer to achieve an increase to Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence, and Wisdom. This means that she'll become trained in Performance while also mastering her acrobatics. She does also become trained in Occultism here, which is because this level sees her step away from Claw Dancer to take up the Barbarian Dedication. Laura lacks a lot of the rage and fury of her predecessor, but she does have her trigger scent that sends her to a feral rage, which this is intended to reference, at least slightly. Animal Instinct obviously fits her the best, and she'll probably use Bear because Wolverine is an option and it at least has claws. Finally, she takes up Quick Climb as her skill feat, letting her use those claws of hers to swiftly scale skyscrapers and other surfaces. There was a bit to that previous level there, but level 11 should be nice and quick. It makes her an expert in her class DC, and also allows her to master Intimidation skill, before she takes the Robust Health General feat. This further references her enhanced regenerative capabilities, though specifically by helping others patch her up, more than letting her do it directly herself. We explore a bit more of that rage and fury from last level with Battle Cry, allowing her to unleash a savage roar at the start of a battle to frighten foes. She starts to expand on new skills at 12th level, and with her training as a covert operative, it seems right for her to start investing in Thievery, making her an expert in it. Claw and Talon Foe as a class feat provides her with some nice action economy, making a strike and then switching her to her next stance. She can also make use of Swift Sneak, so that she can sneak at her full speed, swiftly stalking and slaying adversaries. Looking at level 13, this wild warrior woman wields a wide array of class features that starts with a greater rogue reflexes, making her a legend in her reflex saves. Her armor is increased to expert, her weapons to master, and her perception to legendary. She also gets another skill increase to thievery so that she can master that as well, maybe using her own claws as lockpicks. Speaking of claws, Spiteful Rake is an ancestry feat that allows her to spend 2 actions on a claw strike to leave her target dazzled or blinded on a crit. It is very nice that we have these ancestry feats that work with her claws, and I'm going to be taking as many of them as I can. Her skill feat will be Planar Survival, as the X-Men do a ton of dimension hopping, with her most recent excursion being to the Vault, where time moves much faster. And this helps her survive in those extreme conditions. At 14th level, Laura will take a skill increase that makes her an expert in Medicine, letting her identify where best to stab her foes. She can make some serious use of Dashing Pounce as her class feature, letting her leap, and use Powerful Leap, as 2 actions, and then make 2 claw strikes with a Flourishing Frenzy. While we have explored her climbing capabilities, I think she can still benefit from Wall Jump as her skill feat here, allowing her to spring between foes, though she doesn't do that quite as well as I'd like. That would take Adopted Ancestry for the trip key. Alas, that's not in the cards, so let's get on with level 15, which starts with an ability boost to Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Wisdom. She can now apply a double debilitation, and also unlocks her greater weapon specialization for some even greater damage on her strikes. Her first skill to make it to Legendary will be Stealth, which will play into her Legendary Sneak skill feat. I think this is mainly just taking advantage of her skill investment, because I'm not entirely certain that this feat fits her. But on the other hand, Toughness is a great one for her to finally take, making her a hardier hero with a honed edge. It also comes with that lower recovery check so that it is easier for her to bounce back from the brink. Starting off 16th level is an increase to athletics, making her a legend of the skill. This plays into her cloud jump skill feat, letting our lethal leading lady leap legendary lengths before she takes precise hooks. From this feat, Edwina Scissorhands Heroes gains the knife critical specialization on her claws and the axe critical specialization on her talons. Both of these specializations are in addition to the brawling specialization that she can naturally trigger through her weapon tricks crit specialization, meaning that she can stack multiples on a single target. From there, we're going to get into Knife Hand McGee's 17th level, where she gets Agile Mind to increase her will to master, and makes her successes with it into crit successes. She'll take her skill increase to Acrobatics so that she can become legendary, and can catfall forever. She also takes Accursed Claw from her Ancestry feats, and I have to acknowledge that this is a bit of a weird one. She's not a psychic, she does have psychic defenses, so the persistent mental damage is a little bit off. However, it is simply another effect that enhances her claws, and I think that is a neat feature. She can use Rapid Mantle as her skill feat to swiftly pull herself back onto a ledge whenever she grabs one, making it so that she doesn't have to waste an action to do so on her own turn. With level 18, X-23 finally legendaries her survival skill, and uses that to pick up Legendary Survivalist, using her enhanced healing factors to survive even the harshest of environments. Her proficiency as an assassin and covert operative sees her take precise debilitations for a class feat. This option lets her leave enemies off guard, or simply increase the lethality of her strikes by dealing even more precision damage. A step away from the end is 19th level, which makes X-23 a master with her armors, also gives her Master Strike to carry out executions or just knock out her targets, and finally allows her to become a legend in Intimidation. We're going to keep the trend of following legendary skills with legendary skill feats to take Scared to Death, my beloved. Naturally, we do have to take Die Hard for a comic book character, because no death is more impermanent than a comic book death, except for Uncle Ben. Rounding out level 20 is our ability boost, which will go to Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Charisma. Her last skill increase sees her become a legend in Thievery, and then she finishes off her class feats with Storm of Claws. This feat will allow her to lash out with a series of savage swipes, while slipping and sliding around her unfortunate victims in a deadly dance. She closes it all out though with 2 Angry to Die, a feature pretty persistent across Wolverine and all his related characters, their healing factor allowing them to keep furiously fighting on. And that's the gist of it all. But if you're looking for more advanced options, like a free Archetype game, you can take a peek at just about any of the Claw Dancer feats. Springboard affords some fun mobility, Wheel and Grab can kind of work in conjunction with her Tumble Behind if she can't land that grapple, and Tear Tendons just lets her maim enemies. She can also explore her Barbarian dedication further, with stuff like Barbarian Resiliency, Acute Scent, Renewed Vigor could represent some of her healing, and then perhaps Instinct ability, so that she can explore some of the Animal Instinct feats. You could maybe also start delving into a little bit of the Assassin dedication, given how she served as one, but she could probably just explore Rogue feats further to get a similar feel. All said and done though, we've gone through our ABCs to X-23s, so let's go ahead and take another look at what that all entails. X-23, properly named Laura Kinney, is a changeling fleshwarp rogue of the Thief Racket. This ancestry resembles the experiments that were used to create Laura in the first place, and her assassin training comes from her Mantis Scion background, as well as the rogue class itself. She focuses on hand-to-hand combat, but can pick up a ranged weapon with ease thanks to her investment in dexterity. Her knowledge of assassination techniques are perhaps best demonstrated with precise debilitations, and she has a vast array of skills to help her carry those out. In addition to all of that, she has legitimate superpowers, relying on the high-speed regeneration deviant power, fast recovery, and robust health to resemble her accelerated healing factor. Her Fleshwarp ancestry actually helps to inure her to diseases and poisons, and fast recovery, again, allows her to more swiftly recover from them. She further explores the increased durability and the like that this affords her with options such as toughness, as well as the increased reflexes of her class. Of course, we do have to represent the classic claws of her predecessor. We start off with Slagmay, which grants her Metal Claws, but she mainly wants to use them to go into the Claw Dancer dedication. The Claw stance of this archetype covers the pair of claws that she has in her hands, while its Talon stance simulates the ones on her feet, with more options from the archetype covering her general fighting style, and letting her cycle between her claws and talons in a deadly display. This marvelous mutant maiden mauls malefactors with the mighty madness of her mitts, making mincemeat out of malignants with masterful moxie and melee's most morbid. We're closing out November with this build, so depending on what you folks want to see, I might be starting Disney-cember next week. Be sure to let me know what you think of this build, and what other builds you'd like to see down in a comment. You can check out item suggestions for this build, along with the other builds I've done, over on the blog, which is linked below along with the Monster Monday Twitter and Discord. Thanks for watching, and have a fantastic Friday.
Adiós, pendejo.